All righty, everyone. Welcome once again to another episode of Fun Food Friday because you know this is my favorite day of the week. And today we have a special guest with the long-awaited secrets of making bone broth. Hey, Dr. Tom, how's it going?
It's going well. I can't figure out how to raise my volume to hear you better, but so just shout. Just shout. But yeah, I mean, bone broth is one of the most important things you can consume on a regular basis. And probably people think bone broth for collagen, for joints and things like that. But bone broth is much more than that. It really is. See, when you look at pathways, repair is the most important pathway that we animal humans have that inanimate things don't have. And the bone broth with the minerals, okay, that affects the repair mechanism. Extremely important, okay? So we're just going to make some bone broth today, and I'm going to ask some pointed questions that I know you're not going to get the answer to. Not even Dr. Michelle, maybe. We'll find out. We'll find out here in a minute. So what I have... Say it again?
I said quiz time.
What I have here is a pressure cooker, and I'm not going to do pressure cooking. I'm just using it as a big, heavy pot. That's older than me, and it's still in good shape. So what we're going to do is I like to mix it up in my bone broth and get as much nutrient as I possibly can. And one of the things I do is I don't look for bones that are trimmed of the fat. I want the fat, okay? Now, I just told you that the minerals are a very important constituent of enzymes, and enzymes are your carpenters that do the repair work in your body to keep you living a long, healthy life. But what else is involved in repair? So why do I keep the fat? Like this is a hunk of soup meat, and it has the fatty part on it. These are knuckles that are also very fatty, and I don't want to trim the fat. So when I get bones, I want a lot of fat on them. Anybody know why? Dr. Michelle, since you're the only one talking.
I would say to be able to transport the minerals more effectively into the cells for absorption.
Yeah, I think they play a role, but see, they play a role in the cell membrane formation itself. Every cell membrane is a phospholipid bilayer. So this is the yin and yang. You have the minerals that make the enzymes work. They're the carpenters, but they need the nails, the wood and things like that to build your structure. So we need the fats to be part of the broth so that we have not only the carpenters, but we also have the tools and the raw materials the carpenters need. So I'm going to show you an end product here. This is bone broth I made about a month ago. And you can see it's light, just like the bone broth you get at Walmart, right? Okay, not so much. I mean, it's
bone broth at Walmart.
It's deep, dark, brown, clear. But look at the top. That's the fat layer, okay? So when I add this to anything I cook with, stir fries, whatever, I'll shake it up or break up the fat, and I always put a little of fat in there too, because I want the minerals, the collagen, and I want the fat, because it all plays a role in the repair process. So what do we do with, so here I have knuckles. I just took these out of the freezer. Nothing special, but a lot of fat on them, kind of a soft, bony material. We'll just toss that in my big pot. Then I also have stew beef, a little bit of bone, but some meat on it too. And I might grab this meat in a day or two and have a little snackaroo, but my doggy might also get the meat. But I don't mind leaving the meat in there. So I have that.
Where do you get your, Dr. Tom? Where do you get your stuff from? Can you just?
I have a Black Angus farm 2.5 miles from my house. It's Robert Stinson. We become good friends. I see my cow grazing, and then he goes to a USDA approved processor. It's like an hour away from me. But when I go there, I tell them, do not trim the fat or give me chunks of fat, which I get. I get 4-pound blocks of fat. I get all the bones. I get all the organ meats. And then I have another neighbor about 2.5 miles away that I can go and get organ meat, bones, turkey carcasses anytime I want for nothing. I feel bad about that. So every once in a while I buy lamb from him as well. So that's where I get my bones from. And I think if you live rural, you can look into, the yellow pages, I guess, that's dating myself, and look for meat processors. And oftentimes you can go there and you can get bones for very low cost. And you can find out if it's a small processor, he's probably getting it from a local farm. And you can see the local farm like I do and make sure that it's, it's not on a glyphosate field, or, the cows are in the stalls all the time and things like that. So, but what I'm adding here.
So you have to do you have to make sure that they're organic? Do you have to make sure that they're coming from organic meat?
Yes. I mean, some old-fashioned farmers don't use the term organic, but they are organic. Like my farmer, I see the fields. They're not spraying the fields. He seeds the fields with crabgrass of all things that is really nutritious for the cows. He doesn't really use grain at all. 2 vaccinations that have been historic. No new vaccinations on these cattle or anything like that. So what I have in here is nasty to most people's mind eye. It's liver, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to throw a little liver in there, and that way you're not eating the liver, but you're getting all the nutrients from it. And when I'm all done, I'll show you in a week or so. Next time, I'll show you how I filter things off and collect the bone broth. And then when I make a big batch like this, 5 gallons or a couple gallons, how I put them into containers. And I'll show you what container I have. But I'm just going to take a little of this liver. I'm not going to chop it up. I'm just going to pop it right in the pot. Not
and
all
one of
it.
our viewers says that if you're one of our viewers is Joel. He says that if you're in the city, you can usually go to butcher shops and they'll help you to get these types of materials. So
absolutely.
Start doing some research, guys.
So what I'm going to do, I'm going to do another Food Friday and show you how I incorporate liver and how I parboil it and then grind it up and put it into Hamburg. And so I put a little liver in my Hamburg, and it doesn't really taint the taste that much because I put in like a really good quality Worcestershire sauce and other seasonings to overcome the flavor of the liver. But if you parboil it, it loses that slimy texture, and you can easily grind it in a food processor and mix it with Hamburg. So we'll do that as another time, just to let you know that we're doing that. But it's really important. We're trying to get nutrients, and the organ meat has the most nutrients. Now I'm going to ask you a question here. Let me just clean my hands off. I'm going to add apple cider vinegar only at this point.
Awesome.
I am just going to cover what I put in there with apple cider vinegar, and I'm just using a basic organic brand. You can see the sediment in it, and I'm just going to cover it, cover the bones and the liver and whatnot, and let it simmer for 24 hours. Now, some of you may say, well, put some seasonings in. Why would I not put salt in right now? And the answer is,
salt will
pardon me?
Salt will toughen the stuff. Well, no, my mom always said never put
that's
salt.
Not what I'm worried about. See,
and then
what I want is I want to pull as many minerals out of the bones as I possibly can. And if I put salt in now, I'll put salt in at the very end. If I put salt in now, then I have a higher concentration of minerals, and it's harder for me to pull the minerals out of the bone. So I want the liquid to be as mineral deficient as possible. That way I'll get more minerals out of the bones. And that's why I'm using the apple cider vinegar right now. The acid will also break down the structure of the bone more quickly than a neutral pH water and get more minerals as well. And what's the other question I wanted to make, but I can't remember at the moment. So I have just a basic apple cider vinegar. It's not Bragg's. I just didn't see any there, but oh yeah, some of you may be saying, it's a slow cap. Some of you may be saying, I don't want to taste that acidity of the apple cider vinegar. But the answer is you won't. If you cook it slowly like I'm doing, all the acid will be consumed at pulling the minerals out of the bone. So you might have a little of the apple cider vinegar flavor, but you're not going to have the acidity that you get if you ever take apple cider vinegar for acid reflux or things like that, because it'll all become neutralized over time. So we don't want to wait for me to pour this off, so I won't bother doing it. But just what I'm going to do is I'm going to just cover everything I have in that container, that pot, simmer just a little, see a bubble once in a while, simmer and then the next day I'll put in water, fill it up as high as I want it to go. I'll probably put a couple gallons in, and then you can let the water evaporate and keep adding a little water. And if you add the water, see that water is now mineral deficient, and so it'll help pull more minerals out of the bones. So that's the whole thing. Now, what I also did is I forgot to buy onions yesterday, but I'm growing onions, and so what I did is the following. I just have teeny weeny little onions right now. Lost a little piece of it. But I have the tops. And I'm going to put the tops in there for flavor as well. And another good thing to add would be garlic. I'm growing radishes, so I ground up a little radish. I always like the very tart root crop, and I'm going to throw some radish in there as well. You know, normally I might do this later after the apple cider vinegar the acidity has gone down, but for this purpose, I'm putting it in right now. And then we'll just put it on the burner. I'll crank it on high until I get a little teeny boil, and then it's going to go on like one of the lowest settings. And I just want to get a little teeny boil. And so when you're making a ton of this stuff, you know, containers, you know. So what I do is I take Ziplocs. Now, I think we should get away from plastic, but it's really hard to. But what I'll do is I'll just take a 1-quart Ziploc like this in a bowl like that, pour it in, put it in the freezer. Once it freezes, I can separate it. And now I can just leave this in the freezer. It's not going to get caught on the rail, on the grates or anything like that. So it's a good way to store it. And with that, oh yes. So I mentioned we do not put salt in now because we want to pull the salts out of the bone. And so if we have high salt here, it's going to put pressure and it won't pull the salt out of the bone. But what I have is my very special salt, which is sodium, potassium, and magnesium. And I'm not going to show you how to make that now, but what I think we want to do is we want to do a Fun Food Friday or whatever, freaking crazy Food Friday, and show you how I make this very special salt mixture. And you should eat this salt, add this salt to everything, copious amounts all the time in your water bottle. I'll also show you how to make, I'll step away for a second, how to make the most inexpensive bubbly water for those of you that kind of like the bubbly.
Yeah, I love my soda stream.
Yeah, the bubbly makes, I'll show you how to make this so it actually tastes much more refreshing than unsalted water. And I'll show you how to make that in another Fun Food Friday. And then I have some other condiments. I had cayenne pepper, So we'll add some cayenne pepper in there. If I actually open it up. Some regular pepper, because that's not really going to affect the minerals too much. Normally I would do it a little bit later. And then my favorite is, because I'm a lazy cook, is this Bragg's Organic Sea Kelp Seasoning Delight, because it has essentially every little mineral, herb and spice in it. If you can see the label, it has everything. So we just liberally pop that in there as well. Once again, I would probably do it the day after the apple cider vinegar. And then I might, just to really concentrate it when I'm done, put a little fulvic humic in it not at the end, but when after I've decanted it off and I'm putting it into different containers.
Awesome, awesome.
That's my story, and I'm sticking with it.
So let's see if I can recap.
Pardon me?
I was going to recap for everyone the steps that you did.
Before you recap, what I want to emphasize is making bone broth. Yeah, you should let it go for a while until those bones become like styrofoam. But really, the time it takes to put it all together, 10 minutes, nothing. Go ahead, my dear, recap it.
But you have to make sure that you're going to be in your house for that long period of time. So it's best to probably do it on the weekend if you're working during the week, because you don't want to leave an open flame in your house while you're away. In any case, to recap, pull it all together. We made sure that we got ourselves some really wonderful bones from a butcher. And if you're out in the country, you can go out and make sure you can see how these animals are being bred. You know, make sure that they're eating from the pasture and not simply eating grains. And make sure that there's fat on those bones so that you can ensure that you're promoting the healing of the outer layer of the cell. Remember, the outer layer of your cells, especially your brain cells, right, are fatty layer. And so this is going to help to promote that. And then we're going to put the bones into the pot. We have our apple cider vinegar, and we're looking for, again, organic apple cider vinegar, the one that has the mother in it, so it looks cloudy, it's not clear. And you're going to use it to just barely cover the bones, right? And then you're going to bring to a boil. Once it comes to a boil, then you're going to turn it down to very low flame so that it can simmer for 24 hours. And this is going to allow the most amount of nutrients to be drained from the bones. Remembering back to old biology class in middle school, remember when we talked about osmosis? So we're using this particular principle to transfer the minerals from their high density into the bones into the water, which has no minerals, so it's going to have low density. And then after it is simmered for about 24 hours, then you can add additional amount of water, and you can add your seasonings. Remember, we're not going to add the salt until after that 24-hour simmer. But
I wouldn't add the salt. I wouldn't add the salt until the very, very end.
Okay, so we're not going to add salt until the very, very end when you're getting ready to turn that pot off. All righty. And that's because we don't want to create conflict with trying to get all of the minerals out of the bones. We want to make sure that we're always creating a zone where you have lower mineral density in the water so that it'll start to drain or pull the minerals out of the bones. And you can add things like your onions and your garlic and your radishes, and you can even add things like turmeric and your pepper, and all of these beautiful things will blend in. Remember also your organ meats. So the organ meats go in before you start that 24-hour simmer. And the organ meats that Dr. Tom loves is liver. Okay. So
well, liver I have kidneys too. Kidneys. I saw this video of this. I saw this video of this little like 7-year-old girl with expats down in the Caribbean, Nicaragua, something like that, and she couldn't wait for her kidney to be cooked by her dad. And I'm saying, if that 7-year-old little blonde girl curly-haired blonde girl can eat kidney, I'm going to try it. And kidney is actually very delicious, much less strong and offensive compared to our, our palate, how our palates evolve than liver. And they're both very good. And they're not full of toxins. Their job is to get rid of toxins, not hang on to them.
Yeah. So you have your kidney, you have your liver, you have your heart, so all of these are wonderful organ meats that are high in nutrient density. And so they're beautifully placed to this particular bone broth so that it'll simmer down into nothing. And you won't even taste it in terms of their individual taste. It's just going to blend together and give you that, what we call umami flavor, that yummy, yummy flavor. And it's going to be fantastic. He also said that you can use to finish your bone broth. Hey, Nikki. Yeah.
So if you have a doggy,
once you finish your bone broth,
you put the bone broth in the kibble, and that way, if you're buying kibble, you should never feed your dog kibble. But I get lazy sometimes, and I always have some backup kibble, and I'll just put some bone broth in there, and then she's getting a very nutritious meal.
Yeah. Exactly. And so this bone broth you can use as your base for cooking lots of stuff, not just for soups, but you can also use it to cook your rice. You can use it to cook your quinoa. You can use it to cook your beans, whatever it is, whatever you're cooking. Instead of using water, use your bone broth. And so you're getting all of that wonderful high intensity, nutrient dense food in all of your foods. Okay. So we want to thank you for joining us today for Fun Food Fridays. Please remember to share and subscribe and ring the notification bell so that you're notified of when we go live for Fun Food Friday. And we had a question. How long do you cook it for? Ultimately, after the 24 hours, how long?
I do 4 or 5 days. I just leave it. I'm on an electric burner down here, and if I go away, which I don't really, I'll leave the cover on or the lid just slightly cracked, but otherwise I leave it wide open so it can evaporate. But I'm doing 4 or 5 days, 4, 5, 6 days total. The longer you go, at some point you're not extracting as much because you've extracted the easy stuff, and you have a high concentration of minerals in the water, so you're not extracting that much. You can probably get away with less, but it shouldn't be a 3 hour, like Mercola says, 3 hours, extract the toxins and things like that. I mean, come on, let's measure the toxins and find out if we pick the right, bones and things like that, that's not an issue. Look, repair will be more important than anything else that might be in those bones. The enzymes, the fats, the collagen, it's it's always a risk-benefit analysis in our toxic world. But the risk-benefit analysis is highly in the favor of bone broth.
And we also had a question. How many bones do you put into a big pot? What is that pot size? And what type of pot is it? Is it stainless steel?
This is an old cast iron, maybe stainless steel. No, I think it's just it's a stainless pot. It's really old, okay? Mm-hmm. But how many bones? I mean, I am usually filling up, if it's kind of like, if I think about it, it's kind of like a 5-to-1 ratio. So in other words, if the pot's 5, 1 is your bone. Okay, so 1/5 of the volume are all the things you're throwing in there, the bones, the stew meat, the liver, things like that. That would be a rough estimate. I've never really thought about it. Great question though, but the proof is in the old cliche. I hate cliches, in the pudding. But like, look at the darkness of that. Okay.
Wow.
Whatever I used, which wasn't half the pot full, only like a 1/5 full, provided a rich, robust broth. You can't see through it. And then the liver helps with that as well. And then I'll show you next time how I just decant off the liquid, and then strain the rest of it. And then Nikki gets all the, I just throw that pot outside sideways and let my pooch just eat anything she can find in there.
Yeah. And another way to store it, you know, in addition to recycling old glass jars, remember, always use glass jars, not plastic, and also ice cube tray. So get those really deep ice cube trays, and then you can create all of these beautiful bone broth cubes that you can use to make like little individual soup cups and things of that nature. And wonderful way to store it, very easily stored in your freezer. All righty. And we had another question. Do you use beef bones as compared to poultry?
I mean, I'm doing beef because I just got actually a quarter of a cow, but I have no compunction about doing. Matter of fact, I prefer the taste of poultry bones. I'll be getting some full turkey carcasses that have a lot of meat left on them and whatnot, and I'll get my axe out, cut them in half, pop them in there, and make a turkey or chicken broth at some point. If I had lamb bones, I'd put them in. I think variety is the spice of life. I don't want to restrict anything, but as long as you know the source, I think, and they're out in nature where they're obtaining their food and living free, no issue. I was actually contemplating putting some fish sauce in there too, but I didn't.
Oh, really? Oh, yeah, that would be good. But the thing with the fish ones is that they'll
sauce that sometimes I might add at the end.
Okay. I like to use deer bones because
I just added some chili garlic sauce. What the heck? I mean, be bold, be brave. Try a few different things.
Have fun with your food. That's what we keep on saying, and that's why we title this Fun Food Fridays. There's no.
I think it's really important to know.
Just have fun.
I'm a lousy cook. I was a chemist, so you think a chemist would be good, but I found out I was lousy on the bench, so I went into theoretical. But I really enjoy it. I really enjoy experimenting and trying different tastes and things like that. And I think a lot of people just eat bland. Spice it. Oh yeah, I forgot one important thing.
What is that?
Castor oil. That will go in my broth. That will go in my broth at the end, along with the salt.
At the end.
Yep.
How much castor oil?
I don't want to oxidize it.
How much castor oil?
You know, I am trying to add castor oil to everything I cook now. I'm not doing the tablespoon by mouth. I'm just adding castor oil to everything I cook. And I don't do raw vegetables very often. I'll chew on a carrot, but I'm doing stir fries and soups all the time now. And so I'll just add my castor oil to that. And the answer is, as much as you can take. The longevity studies and the people that I talk to that are over 90 that have taken castor oil, I don't think you can OD on castor oil. Put it on your skin. My daughter says her complexion's improved dramatically since she's been putting it on her skin. Take it internally. You know, it's a fat. What are your skin made of? It's fat. What keeps the skin supple? It's these fat molecules that are long and flexible, like a wet noodle. That's what you want.
Yes. So awesome. Thank you everyone for joining us this week for Fun Food Fridays, and we look forward to seeing you again next week. Until then, remember, have fun with your food and peace and blessings.